Good morning, Illini. I hope you're having a great semester so far. I'm Matt Schrock, once again, back to bring you another installment of Healthy Illini. We're now about 2.5 months into fall semester 2021, and we are all busy in our routine of high activity and hopefully not too much stress, but the grind is full speed ahead. And with that, our bodies can take a beating, so we want to talk about that a little bit today. Today is all about posture, back health, and everything that touches on. So let's get into it. Joining me today is Rex Clark. Rex, thank you for being here.
Sure. My pleasure.
Rex is a physical therapist at McKinley Health Center. Rex, real quick, if you just give us a quick overview of what that means as a physical therapist, what you offer and what you do at McKinley.
Yes, I'm a physical therapist. I've been here about 14 years, I believe. I work strictly with students as part of McKinley, and I'll see students come in with aches and pains in their muscles, joints, and many different parts of the body. And I'm really here just to try to make them feel better so that they can function better as a student.
So you do a lot of things. You touch on a lot of areas as a physical therapist, and we could do a whole series on this, weeks and weeks of different topics. But today we really want to stick to the central theme of discussing back health and posture. So just real quick as an overview, why is that something worth dedicating an entire podcast to? Why is back health so important?
Well, this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart, mainly because I see so many students that come in with neck and back pain. Typically, during non-pandemic times, I'll see maybe 30% of my patients with neck and back pain, and many of those are related to poor posture. And it's seemed to have worsened during the pandemic. It's maybe closer to 50% because people have been staying inside more. Last year, their classes were all on Zoom, and they're sitting in their apartment and just most likely not sitting in a good seat, and so they'd end up having more neck and back pain, and they also weren't getting out, walking around, going to the gym, those kind of things.
You mentioned that it posture is a big part of this. So we're in an auditory medium here where you can't show visually, but as best you can you describe what proper posture would be?
Well, let me talk about poor posture first. The classic position, if you can imagine, is a person is sitting probably not in a good chair, maybe on a couch, maybe in a bed, and their back rounds out into the shape of a C. Their head drops forward, their elbows aren't supported, and they're just working away on their laptop. So what really is better is if the spine is normally in the shape of an S, and to help maintain that, you need to sit against a chair, both your lower back and upper back supported. And what really helps also is keeping your elbows supported on armrests or the desk or table. And for most people work with laptops, and that is just really, laptops are kind of evil because they kind of force you into a slouch position. But
sure.
If you have a laptop, which most people do, what I tell people is to elevate the laptop about eye level, keep those elbows supported, and for that to work, you need an external keyboard to get back to that S-shaped position. Some people have external monitors, those are much more expensive than an external keyboard, but you really want to keep that. The key is keeping the back supported, lower and upper back, and then for that to work, you got to elevate the laptop with the external keyboard.
I mean, if you know you're sitting a lot and you know that you have pain in the middle of your back, that's pretty much posture, back pain. But are there other things that it can affect? I mean, can you have aches and pains other places that are related to the back but might not necessarily be back pain?
Somewhat back related is people get headaches, your neck's part of your back. People drop forward and they keep this sustained bad position, and they may end up having headaches. Also, when you're sitting for a long time, things stiffen up. Your hip flexors, your hamstrings. So, if things stiffen up and then you go out and be active, and you may tend to pull muscles more easily, or also sitting so much, things get weak, especially some of your glute muscles. So weakness in glute muscles can certainly affect performance and activities elsewhere.
So because we know college students, and professionals sit a lot. There's a lot of issues with being sedentary. With you're in classes, you're doing homework, you're at the library, you're in these seated positions you're talking about. And you mentioned, getting support for the back and making sure that you're in alignment and things like that. But are there tips or adjustments that can be made day-to-day life to improve posture or maintain proper posture?
First and foremost is probably make sure you have a decent chair. Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of bad chairs around this campus in apartments, classrooms, libraries, all over the place. So you don't want a chair that when you sit in it against the back of it and you lean back too easily, then that just will never work. You might as well be sitting on a stool. So hopefully you don't have one of those. You can just you easily have a straight backed wooden chair, and that could feel okay with some proper support, proper cushions. So first of all is a supported chair. Then if that chair has good armrests, then you need to use those. If you don't have a good armrest, then you just get your belly up against the table, put your elbows on the table or desk, and that'll help keep the upper traps relaxed. And like I said, you need to elevate the laptop if you're using a laptop. So you can use books, box. You can go out and buy a laptop stand if you want, but anything to elevate the laptop, and then that external keyboard can come in handy also. Now, if you're, one thing that I've noticed, if you're shorter, maybe 5'1", 5'2", or shorter, then the common chair is not going to fit you. So what I tell shorter folks is to get a big fat pillow behind their back, or maybe their bed pillow will work, and that way you'll feel more comfortable. You'll have your feet on the ground and still have proper back support. On the other hand, if you're really tall, then your head's a long ways from the screen, so you're going to have to raise that screen higher.
And we are talking, we're describing things, but it does help to see what Rex is talking about. And so if you get a chance, go over to our YouTube. There is a video on there called Improve Your Posture. That does have visuals. It does show a little bit about how to assess those sorts of things and see what how your chair is doing. So I encourage you to go to YouTube, check that out, watch that video. You can search Improve Your Posture and find it there. You talked about the chair. Are there any exercises or stretches that a student could do that would strengthen the back or help reinforce some of that?
Well, really, that's an individual thing.
Okay.
Each person might need something a little different. It may be poor flexibility, it may be weakness, or just may simply be the poor posture causing pain. Every once in a while, somebody will come in with neck and back pain, and I simply will say, you work on posture first before I give you exercises. But I have found that people who exercise more, their muscles will be stronger. They tend not to come in with this dull or achy pain that they don't know really what caused it, that came on gradually. Their pain tends to be more, they hurt themselves lifting or something like that.
So, and we'll get to this a little bit later as well, but so you would start with the posture, the fixes there, and trying to look at your posture and things like that. And if it persists, then maybe make an appointment at McKinley and see a provider and get that expertise, because it is going to be an individualistic type approach to it. It's not a one size fits all.
The provider can check things out, decide if maybe x-rays are appropriate or other tests. And then if they feel like physical therapy is appropriate, then they send them up to me.
If you're a student at UIUC, and you're taking full classes, you have paid the health service fee. The services at McKinley are available to you. You've already paid for them. So by all means, reach out, and we'll talk about how you can do that in a minute. But the providers and professionals are here to help. We've talked a lot about sitting in posture. Are there other activities that can cause back issues that you might not think of, or do you want to address maybe standing posture and things touch on that topic?
Yeah, being here for 14 years, I have developed or have seen some trends that happen during the year. Every August, I'll see people who hurt themselves, because that's the big moving month.
Right.
They'll hurt themselves when lifting couches or boxes off the floor or whatever. So yeah, every August, I'll see the people who hurt themselves moving. Of course, the people who go to the gym and may not be ready, they decide to do deadlifts and squats and it's too aggressive, or maybe they just have bad form and they end up hurting their back. This is still related to sitting, but finals week always brings on more neck and back pain because people are just cranking out the hours in front of the computer. More specifically, people who have to pipette, I see them periodically just because they kind of get into some funky positions with their arms outstretched and they have to hold that position, and their pain may tend to be more upper back, upper trap related, but that's kind of an interesting phenomena. And then just in general, people who have their normal lifestyle, they'll do some activity they do too much too soon. Mm-hmm. For instance, like the Illinois Marathon in the spring, people will start training and they just really bump up their training too much. And a lot of times it's knees and feet problem, but sometimes they'll have back pain, and it's really because they just didn't train appropriately.
Little plug for that. McKinley does have programs in the spring for the marathon, and we are planning a podcast in the spring. So be on the lookout for that if that's something that touches where you're at listening. We did take some time on our Instagram and our social media recently. We put out a call for questions from students, from anyone who has listened to the podcast, and gleaned a couple of those to talk about today. So let's start with, if you do have tightness in your shoulders and your upper back, if you have any knots or anything like that, is there anything you would recommend for someone to address those aches, maybe something to do at home?
Well, that's $1 million question, literally, because there's so much money spent on things like medications, different lotions or creams, massage balls, using fingers of your friends or family or professionals, and then all the different medical type of treatments. One thing I'll tell people, there are two ways to get better that I look at. One is do things to make you feel better, some of these passive treatments, maybe exercises. And another way is avoid the things that make you worse. And so that's where I always tie it back into posture. But if you do want to do some of the more passive treatments, like I said, there's the different techniques or devices out there. I certainly am big on exercising, because exercising will get the blood flowing through that area. Tight, inflamed muscles can benefit from more exercise, more blood flow. So that's where hopefully my expertise in the area will give you the right exercise to do, whether you like to do them in the gym or like to do them at home. You don't have time to go to the gym. Swimming is usually is a very good way to work these things out. So, but just a lot of times it just starts with the posture, but beyond that, the passive treatments like we talked about, or the active treatment of exercising, is a good way to go.
What I'm hearing is there's no fast track to fix these things, but if you don't come back to posture, then you're really not treating the issue. Is that what I'm hearing here? You're treating the symptom a lot of times, but you're not taking care of what's
right. A lot of the things you'll get from wherever is just treating the symptoms, whether it's popping pills or some of these soft tissue techniques. But you really need to think about, why am I here in the first place? And here on the campus, I just have seen so many cases where it's from people sitting in a bad position. If you go to any library and look at people, how they're sitting, they're going to be in that C shape versus sitting with good posture.
Sure. So upper back and knots and tightness, that was our most asked question. The second one was, are there any preventative measures or advice that would relate to carpal tunnel or wrist pain? Because like you said, we've got laptops and a lot of typing and repetitive motion of that nature. And so carpal tunnel is an issue on campus as well. Is there anything you can speak to in that area?
So carpal tunnel syndrome is a repetitive stress injury. So repetitive, obviously you're doing something, students type all day long sometimes, or use a mouse or whatever. Stress is you're asking it to do things that it's really not ready to tolerate. So yeah, we go back to posture, but more specifically, think about the keyboard. Typical laptop keyboard, you have to deviate your wrists such that the kind of toward the pinky side, and that puts stress on certain muscles and tendons, and you stay there long enough, then that can cause some problems. Or maybe you're keeping your forearms or wrists on the edge of the desk or table, and you're just keeping it there. That will tend to compress the nerve that goes through the wrist, and that could cause some irritation after a while. Maybe using the mouse too much, using your finger to scroll too much could be aggravating, or if you're just the finite wrist movements back and forth using the mouse could cause that. You can try stretches; those sometimes help, but really avoiding the things that make you worse, making the ergonomic adjustments would be the first thing to try, and then you can do various stretches or exercises to help.
So let's come back to the what you mentioned before, where there are some home tips, some self-help tips you can do. But if it persists, if those aren't taking care of the issue, and you want to see a provider, or you need to follow up with someone who has some expertise, how would a student go about doing that? How would they get in contact with you, or how would they get in contact with somebody here at McKinley?
First thing would be to go see a McKinley provider. They can check things out, make sure that it's safe to send to physical therapy. They will give you a referral, and then you can contact the Sportwell department, Sportwell and Health Ed, and then we can just set up an appointment. I'll evaluate you, and then hopefully offer you good advice so that you start feeling better.
And those things, if you're listening and you're a student, those things are all in the same building. You can come see the provider here at McKinley. If you get the referral, it's upstairs. So you're not being sent to another place all around campus. You are in the right place, and we'll get you lined up with all of that. Well, it feels like that was really quick, but that's the time that we have today and going through this. Rex, I appreciate you being here. Are there any other things that you wanted to share today, or anything that I missed that you feel is important to bring up?
Well, just posture, and exercise too, of course.
Posture and exercise. Rex, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
There are a lot of things you can do to maintain proper back health, but really the central point and focus is about posture. And if you don't pay attention to it, injury or ache can come along, and that can really mess up everything you're trying to do because it reaches into so many areas of our lives. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, be sure to reach out to McKinley Health Center. And you can also reach out to us here at Healthy Illini. We'd love to continue the conversation and help out. There's contact information and resources both in the episode description and in the podcast description. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important. You matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter. And we are here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing. We'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.